Greetings everyone, my name is Gleb, I'm Russian, and I'm here to have a quick conversation with you about the topic that most of you probably never thought of, but which has a huge impact on whole CSGO community. The problem is that Russians are being toxic, bad, trolling, annoying, and stuff like that. As Russian, I feel like I have something to say about this problem, and hopefully someone will feel me and understand at some point. Throughout my CSGO experience, I faced three different aspects of this problem. First one is Russians cannot communicate with players because they don't know English well. The second one is Russians are raging and trolling. And the third one, Russians are bad in CSGO. I should mention that I don't want to defend anyone's behavior or try to make someone feel guilty or any of those things. I just want to express my point of view to those who can watch this video. So, let's start. The first point I have to say about is a basic thing, statistics. The population of CIS countries is around 300 millions of people. CIS is ex-USSR, so those people who live in CIS countries speak Russian for the most part. I will call them Russians to make it easier. Then the population of Europe is around 700 millions of people. CIS is a part of Europe. So statistically, every fourth player on EU server is Russian. Therefore, we can tell that in any other matchmaking there are more Russian players than players of any other country. From this point, we have to keep this thesis in mind. So let's say you start playing MM. You press ready button and suddenly you are in a team with a raging player. According to statistics I mentioned before, you have 40% chance that this raging player is Russian. That one makes it almost impossible for any other country player to be noticed as a raging, trolling or not English speaking person just because almost half of all these people are Russians. There are crazy people in any nations. I met a lot of Swedish, German, Turkish, Polish raging and trolling players, but it's hard to notice them because they are not Russians. And that is the main point I'm trying to make here. For instance, let's say that it would be more German people than it is right now. Let's say 400 millions. So obviously there are raging peoples in Germany. Then at some point CSGO community will consider Russian and German people like the most raging ones. This is it, the statistics. The second problem is that Russians can't communicate normally. This is not true for the most part, and I'm a good proof of that. Yeah, not all the Russians can speak English very well, and some of them can't at all, but for the most part, those Russians who can speak English, they will never show that they are actually Russians, because of all the hate they get. Same story with me and my friends, I never show I'm Russian, because people start raging for no reason. Another point is that in USSR, which existed like 20 years ago, Russian people never learned English, because we didn't need that, just like a lot of Asian countries even nowadays. So Russia couldn't make the education system work so good in 20 years to have a good English speakers all over the place. I know this is not a great of excuse, but still, most of Russians can call basic strats in CSGO. And if some of them can't, it doesn't mean none of us can. The third problem is that Russians are bad in CSGO. This is straight bullshit, and those people who don't like shit talk never say that. Russian people play in top tier teams, and this is fact. Those teams are Na'Vi, Hellraisers, Peter, Flipside, Phenomenon, and so on. Those teams doesn't come out of nowhere. They are the same players as we are. Yes, there are bad players in Russia, but it doesn't mean that all Russian players are bad. It only means that you got unlucky with that particular player. And there is no reason to blame whole country just because you lost your rank in matchmaking. I feel bad for those Russians who play good, speak good English and do everything right, but still being afraid to say where they're from. The majority of Russian players suffer because of those who make your CSGO experience less enjoyable. So please, don't judge the whole nation. Let Russians feel good in matchmaking, and maybe someday we will see the friendly community. Hopefully someone can understand the point of this video and will be more tolerant to Russian players, will not make them frustrated and feel bad in the beginning of the game with shouts like "fuck Russia" or any others. Thanks for your time. Have fun, guys.